If I had $1 every single time Gacha started a little kerfuffle with Singaporeans, I'll have 2 coins. I'll have $2. There's not a lot, but it's kind of weird that I have $2.
Subscribe.
Hey guys, MrPokke here, back with another video. Today we are gonna be in a interesting predicament, if I can say so myself. Gacha has made a video about why 44111 is better than 43311 builds in Wuthering Waves right now. And surprisingly, the first person to disagree with Gacha in Wuthering Waves is not me. Me and Gacha were kind of like arch nemesis in Honkai style role, but actually, in Wuthering Waves, the first person to disagree with Gacha is TenTen. 44111 is a massive scam. Avoid this misinformation right now. So he's pretty much directly calling out Gacha, and we're gonna pretty much see what we have cooking up over here. So without further ado, let's get into today's content. All right, first of all, we're gonna see what Gacha has to say, because I believe this video came out first, right? And then TenTen released his video afterwards. So let's just see what Gacha has to say.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another video.
We are finally back. We're sober.
Question a lot in the community, especially when I'm streaming. Hey, Smack, what's the difference between?
Oh, by the way, there's already an answer, but I'll give my take towards the end, right? But let's just see what both of these amazing content creators have to say, right? At the end of the day, all content creators will come from a perspective. You can't really say you're the best content creator, you're worse, you're dumb. That's not it. It's just differing opinions in the Wuthering Waves in Gacha games. So let's all make this a positive community for all gamers, right? Because I do believe that having disagreements is completely fine. I don't think this is drama. I think it's just having differing opinions, right? So, all right, guys, what do you have to say?
44111. Is it worth running that, or should I go 43311? I've been getting that question so many times, it's actually insane. And as a free-to-play player, I think I can, provide a good degree of insight on how it's been working for me. I have been personally rocking 44111 on my Calcharo, on my Havoc Rover, and on my Donjin. And that's because Havoc and Thunder are the 2 elements in the game. There's another element too. I think it's the Moonlight set. Where you can get 2 4-cost bosses. You can farm 2 4-cost bosses, and they're obviously infinitely. You can always farm it, and they're much more effective, much more quick to do, as opposed to going around the map and scout and scavenge hunting for those goddamn pesky 3-cost elites who don't drop a goddamn thing.
Absolutely.
The Thunderbird is a pain in my ass. Him and Flautus, not only do they not drop as much as the other elites do, they also don't drop the stat you want them to drop, which is electro bonus on the electric bird, who often at times keeps giving me all my fusion pieces. I don't even have a fusion DPS, right? It's really annoying. So
I mean, theoretically, in the future, when we get them in the future, theoretically, it's gonna be great. So honestly, it's not that bad that you don't get the right set with the right main set you want right now, because eventually it might drop. And then it's going to be great, right? So it's all good.
How has it been working for me? Because I actually said, okay, as a free-to-play player, I don't have a lot of resources. It's quite scarce. It's quite finite. I can't just be doing this mid-max shit in the beginning of the game because I don't have a lot of resources. I need to have a set on somebody that's reliable, effective, and can last me a long time. What I've come to realize is if you run the 43311 and you have a dog shit crit value in your substats, you can't roll crit substats, that shit is ineffective and garbage. It is purely a mid-max method that you should be using once the game has been out for quite a bit of time and you've started getting good crit rate substats rolled in. Because what's going to happen is you're going to have these damage bonuses, right? You're a double electro damage bonus on the 2-3 costs, or electro attack percent on the 2-3 costs. But your crit value is 30 over 200. Your crit value is 40 or 50 over 200 or 180. So it doesn't matter if you have that extra damage bonus or that extra attack percent. You're not landing the crits as much as you could be. Whereas with the 44111, it's way easier running 2 crit rate pieces, or maybe a crit rate crit damage piece, getting the extra crit damage very early on, to the point where you don't have to stress as much as about the substat crit value. You don't have to stress as much because you got those 2 double crit rate crit damage bonuses.
All right, so pause here 1 second. Everything that Gacha has said up to this point has been completely accurate. Farming for 3 costs in this game, they are 1,000% more difficult than farming 4 costs. I don't think anyone will disagree with this, because you have an infinite attempt at farming 4 costs for completely free, and we already know that we have a hidden pity for our echoes. So every other time you do a 4 cost, you are pretty much guaranteed to get a 4 cost drop. Whereas for 3 costs, if you kill every single one of them in the overworld, they're done. for the day. You have to either go to your friend's world or you have to do tested fields. Both of which is really not very convenient. And even when you want to farm the 3 costs in your own world, you have to hop around, you have to detect them and just go around. It takes a much longer time in order to get them. Not to mention the pity, the hidden pity for the 3 costs to drop. I believe it is every 3rd, if not every 4th echo. And if at any point of time, if you were to reset the hidden pity, it's gone. Whereas for 4 costs, it is very reliable, right? It is very reliable. Boom, boom, boom. Every second, you get a 4 cost, you get a 4 cost, you get a 4 cost. And even if the pity resets because you got an early, you can just go to the next boss and then go back in. Second point, having worse crit values on your double 3 costs, you are fundamentally just gonna deal less damage. It is definitely true. Everything you say here, if you have double 3, like for example, if you're running Jiyan, you run like an arrow damage bonus, but if your thingy is just like no crit value, you're getting HP rolls, defense rolls, or you didn't even roll them at all because you don't have enough resources. Getting 2 4 costs in order to buff up your crit rate and crit damage, it is definitely gonna deal a lot, or not maybe not a lot, but it's definitely gonna deal more damage. Everything that Gacha Smack has said, absolutely right.
And I have tested these builds, and if I'm being completely honest with you, I haven't gotten into the math yet into this game. Just getting off a little side tangent. I haven't gotten in the numbers yet. Why? There's still so much to learn. There's so much to do. I don't want to talk about numbers yet. It's not that time to talk about numbers yet from where I stand. I'll talk about numbers once I have everyone built, and now we can get into the mid-max nerdy shit. But for now, how are these 4-4-1-1-1 builds performing? They're performing, especially for me as a free-to-play, they're performing very well. In fact, if I'm being honest, the numbers kind of look pretty identical. Now, is that true? Probably not. But I could hardly tell the difference. And I want to show you guys how my builds are looking on these characters that I'm using. And then I have a little showcase with Calcharo against the Tower of Adversity, against that douchebag bird, showing you how he performed with the 4-4-1-1-1 build. Good crit value, most importantly, good damage, and I was able to squeeze out a 12-star clear. I think that's important context to provide with regards to the value. The Havoc Rover is also doing good damage. She's ulting for around 34 to 40,000 damage.
Pause here real quick. The 4-4-1-1-1 sets technically only really work for like 3 sets. Your Thunder, your Havoc, and your Moonlit Cloud. But technically, it's not even your Moonlit Cloud because you don't really care about the double crit since you're running support anyways, right? And for Moonlit Cloud, you really want that energy regeneration main stat. So for example, your Mortefi, your Sanhua, you really want the ER. So even if you can run 4-4-1-1, having ER on the 3 costs is probably going to be making a lot more significant difference. So let's just talk about the DPS sets. You could only run it on your Havoc and Thunder because that's the only one where you have 2 different 4 costs. And if you run like arrow damage or fusion damage, there's only one Infernal Rider or one Monkey. And if you were to run duplicates, you can't trigger the set bonus. And for Wuthering Waves, the set bonus actually matters quite a bit. Unless you run a 4-4-1-1 running a 2-piece attack plus arrow, right? Attack plus elemental, and 1 off-piece. That will probably definitely work. A little bit of nuance. If you want to run a 5-piece, the only one you can run a 5-piece for is your Thunder and Havoc.
Honestly, I'm pretty sure you can use these builds until the ends of time if you wanted to. But I know everybody wants to have the best sub stats. However, in the beginning of a game, the launch of a game, you don't have that luxury. You really just don't. You don't have the luxury to be mid-maxing. Also, as I'm sure you guys are probably wondering, Smack is the free-to-play account review coming soon. We want to see what your account looks like. I'll be doing that. I'll be doing that next very soon. All right, just bear with me a little bit. Anyways, my Havoc Rover sitting at 90 over.
Holy shit! What the f? Holy shit, that's crazy. That's an insanely good. Oh my god.
226.
Okay.
That's thanks to the dope. No.
Okay, to be fair, yeah. Because long swords, they have a crit rate main stat, right? So I'm assuming Gacha Smack has
the food buff. Take away 22%. And yeah, the
oh wait, is this a full buff? Okay, wait, let's see.
22. So 80, 70.
We're gonna come back to the full buff later, but yeah, let's
68. She's sitting at 68 if you take away the 22% crit rate food buff.
So it's on food buffs. Okay. It's on food buffs, guys. Hey, chat, let's move on. It's on food buffs. Right, it's on food
already.
Buffs. Oh, is it natural? Is it natty?
Which is actually very solid.
Not natty, chat. This is not natty stats.
We come over here.
This unnetty.
I have this at plus 25. I have this at plus 25. She's rocking 1 crit rate.
Okay, chat, before we move on this, I do want to say, Gacha Smack does not know how to roll relics in this game. If I had 3 rolls, and out of the 3 rolls, 2 of them are defense HP, there's no way in God's green earth, I'm going for 4 and 5, right? So respectfully, Gacha Smack does not know how to roll relics in this game. There's actually a way, or rather a more efficient way you roll relics, especially if you're someone that can perma spam the bosses. You should only roll the first two. And if the first two subset, if they are not crit rate / crit damage, I'm not going forward. The only way I'll go for the third one is either it is a attack percentage with 1 line of crit, or if I just roll double crit. If I do not roll that on the first two rolls, from a experience perspective, it is just more worth it to just farm for the next main stat. Because farming for main stats, especially if you have a lot of time, it is infinite. It costs 0 stamina. If my first 3 rolls was this, there's no way I was rolling this, right? So yeah.
And 1 crit damage. And that's because...
What the? My man is... Holy shit! My man doesn't give a... Alright, I feel like Gacha Smack needs to know how to roll relics. He needs to know how to... He needs to learn a little bit. Because I feel like he's low-key breaking his account. This is not the main point. Alright, chat, this is not... The main point is whether 441 is better than 433, right? So that's the main point. Let's move on. Right, let's move on.
Once you get Rover up to, I believe, it's probably her last one. Yeah, once you unlock the S6... I think it's a free 25% crit rate in the Dark Surge state.
We're probably not getting this anytime soon.
If you're going to do the 44111 build on her, it's better to just do crit rate here, crit damage here, and then, you know, wait on that S6 and then she'll be looking solid. And like I said, this build, regardless of if the double Havoc bonus is better or Havoc attack percent, doesn't matter. I guarantee you the damage ain't gonna be that big of a difference. This build is way more easier to build and you're gonna get some good value out of it for a very long time. And like I said, I'd put my money on it and say the build can last till the ends of time. You don't need the best of the best builds. Now I'll be honest, I got some good sub stats on my builds because
holy fucking shit, that's a good ass build.
Calcharo is at 60 over 185 or 186. And here's the thing. First of all, he can get more crit damage on these subs, right?
Yep.
But the thing is, I haven't even built these up yet. Once I build these two,
I'm not sure if I will roll this myself personally. Right? Me personally, I'm not gonna roll this. You want to gamble? Sure, but me personally, I'm not rolling this, guys. Me personally, I'm not rolling this. I'm also not rolling this.
Another what? 3 plus 4.
But hey, he's a gambler, guys. He's a gambler, right? So like,
or another 7% crit chance. That'll put him pretty damn close to 70% crit chance over 186. And I had a dog water Calcharo build when I was running the 3311 because these three. Maybe I still, yeah, here we go. Look at this piece right here, bro. It's ass cheek. That's what I was rocking. And then this one, I already dumped it because I was just like, bro, this piece is so garbage. It was another 3 cost attack percent bird that just rolled like defense, HP defense. So I said, screw this, bro. I'm getting 2 crit rate 4/4s and I'm calling it a day, man. And guess what? It's been doing me wonders. So it's way easier to build, saves way more time. You don't have to stress about getting these goddamn annoying 3 cost echoes. And it'll last you for a very long time. It's good builds to invest in. Most importantly, at the launch of a game. At the launch of a game, your resources are just incredibly scarce. I can't stress that to you enough. And it's built that way to instill that gacha pressure into you to want to spend money on the game. I recommend 44111 right now over the 3/3s, unless you just get god tier rolls on those 3/3 sub stats. Then sure, you can run that.
Okay, before we continue, you don't need god tier rolls on your 3/3s in order to make them to become better than 4/4s. You can get your god tier rolls from your 1 costs and 4 costs. So let's just say your 3 costs, if they're not god tier, if they rolled like 1 line of crit, it is really not that bad. In fact, I'm pretty damn sure you can do more damage running the 2/3 costs because the elemental damage buff and attack buff, it matters quite a lot, right? And the second reason is actually shown by Gacha Smack himself. This game in Wuthering Waves, you can consume food buffs to artificially buff your crit rate. Crit value in this game, if you're not doing like power adversity, it is not that hard to get because there is crit rate foods. Number 3, the difference of 441 and 433, the amplification for 433 is going to be much higher. So let's just say right now, if 433, it does like maybe like 5% more damage. And let's just artificially, like theoretically, we say we do 5% more damage than 441 without any buffs. But if you were to include like Verina's all-type damage deepen, if you were to include Yinlings, right, Liberation damage deepen, Electro damage deepen, you include all these buffs, as well as the downtime, all the multipliers, it will add up. So more often than not, 433, it doesn't really take a god roll to outperform a 441. I believe we can all agree that 433, it will definitely deal more damage and it wouldn't take like months to get a God tier 433 set. That being said, 441, it is infinitely easier to obtain compared to even the 3 costs. Because 3 costs, even though you don't really need God tier subsets, you still need to get that right set with the right main stat, right? You still need to get that. And to even get the right set, the right main stat, it's already difficult enough by itself. 4-4 is definitely gonna be there for you in the early game. But don't expect 4-4s to last you for a very, very long time before you can see your 4-3-3s out damaging your 4-4s.
Most likely, a lot of people are probably running through the same thing I'm running into, which is trying to get those main stats. And then you get the main stats and then it's dog shit fucking substats. So your crit value is looking like this right here, which is horrible. So that's my recommendation. Overall, guys, I think running 4-4-1-1-1 is the best way to build your characters that can afford those builds, like who have the fucking elements that can grind 2-4 costs. I think that's the best method to go for right now at this stage in Wuthering Waves. Who cares about the damage numbers that are being mathed out by the theory crafters right now, which I'm not trying to throw shade at them. They're doing a fantastic job. I wouldn't even stress about that. I'd be stressing about just getting characters built. And that's one of the best ways to do it in the beginning of the game right now.
I just want to say, theory crafters in Wuthering Waves, 90% of the time, it doesn't really matter. Because they always depend on your piloting skills. If you can learn the boss attack patterns, know when to parry, know when to dodge, know when to go in to break, it will be far more beneficial than knowing, oh, do I run like attack main stat or elemental damage main stat? Oh, do I run 4-4 or 4-3-3? It's really, really irrelevant because it doesn't matter if you're just going to get one shot, right? Learning the bosses is far more important than the theoretical highest damage you can do. But yeah.
Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side.
I just want to wait a little bit more. You can definitely clear the hazard zone even with a 4-4-1-1 build, but at that point, it's not really tied to your echoes anymore. It's more tied towards your levels, your tracers, your weapons. You can definitely clear endgame right now, running 4-4-1, if your level is high enough. And I think that's kind of like the whole argument that Gacha is trying to make. From a resource perspective right now, it is easier to get 4-4-1 and get it going to make your units deal more damage compared to trying to make 4-3-3-1 work. But there's definitely nuances like your food crit rate bars, how much this amplifies, and how difficult it really is to get a usable 4-3-3. Because it definitely doesn't take god roll 4-3-3s to make a 4-3-3 work. So guys, is a little bit exaggerating how long it would take for you to make 4-3-3 work. Right, you don't need god rolls. As long as you get a little bit of decent, right, maybe a few crit damage, you can get it going, right? You can get it going. Yeah, that is gonna be that for guys, man. Now let's move on to TenTen stakes. Nuclear misinformation. 4-4-1-1-1 is a massive scam right now. And then we'll kind of wrap it up towards the end.
I've been seeing a lot of people trying to push for the 4-4-1-1-1 build, claiming that it is easy.
Also, shout out to TenTen. He is also a Singaporean, so I just realized, yeah, Gacha Smack has like, he summons the Singaporeans. Because then it's not Singapore, right? Oh my god. Hey, that's kind of crazy. If I had a dollar every single time Gacha started a little kerfuffle with Singaporeans, I'll have 2 coins. I'll have $2. It's not a lot, but it's kind of weird that I have $2, right? So yeah.
Easier to obtain in the early game, and you should be doing it. No, you should never be doing it. That is completely wrong. And it's nothing to do with the fact that it's easier to obtain. It has nothing to do with the fact that the subsets are easier to roll. It is just mathematically purely wrong. And it just comes down to simple calculus. It actually comes down to a pretty simple calculus problem called optimization. I already talked about in a different video, but here's a little more detailed breakdown on a hopefully a simpler level instead.
Insane.
Now here's a simple graph that kind of explains the picture.
Holy
now, I want to
shit.
make it very clear that this graph is not the final answers. Depending on the characters, depending on your build, your team, your graph could look different. But the general idea is always the same. Starting from the top yellow line, this is your 4-3-3-1-1 with a 5p set bonus.
Yep.
And as your substat get better, you can see your damage keep growing, and that just makes sense. And each one of these lines represent a different setup. Some of these are 4-4-1-1-1, some of these are 4-3-3-1-1 with like no set bonus. There will be a legend at the top of the screen right now.
Okay.
And you can see that without any substat, assuming you're only caring about main stats, you're still better off running a 4-3-3-1-1 build. Always. Why? Let's look into the math. The first assumption people make is that your 4-4-1-1-1 will have way better substat than your 4-3-3-1-1 because it is easier to farm. Completely false. That is because your 4-4-1-1-1 is transferable. This 4 here is equivalent to this 4. That means if you got a good forecast on your 4-4-1-1-1 setup, you have a good forecast for your 4-3-3-1-1 setup.
Absolutely, which kind of goes back to the point where it really does not take a god roll to make 4-3-3-1-1 work. Your 4 costs, your 1 costs, you can just literally just shift them, right? All that's left is for your 3 costs to not roll like dog shit. So assuming that both your 4 costs and your 1 cost, they already have god rolls, or like good rolls for both, that's when the transfer gets very, very easy. You don't only look at the 3 cost subsets, because your 4 costs and 1 cost, they're still gonna do. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
These 2 pieces are the exact same. There's no different. The same go with the 2 1 costs at the bottom. If your 1 cost have a god roll for your 4-4-1-1-1 build, so will your 1 cost roll for the 4-3-3-1-1. Because
absolutely.
They are the same, they're the share. So the only difference between these 2 sets are that you're running a 4-1 setup here versus a 3-3 setup here. And this is a massive difference since this gives 60% damage. Comparing these 4 pieces together, you'll see that the difference is that the 4 costs provide you with either 22% crit rate or 44% crit damage, plus the 1 cost that provide you with 18% attack. On the other hand, the 2 free costs each provide you with 30% damage, or I guess you could go 30% attack if you really want to. And a smart man at this point would immediately recognize that there's no way this will ever compete. The 30% damage main stat is just significantly better than the 4-1 main stat, to the point where even if you have the god roll, the best roll, the perfect roll on your 4-1 piece, it probably won't compete with your 3-3 piece.
But how will you get it though? How will you get that elemental damage on the elemental set? I can tell you, I have tried, right? I have tried farming the overworld. I can damn well tell you, if it took me probably like 2 to 3 days, maybe even more than that, to get a singular right main stat on the right set. So as a casual, can you imagine how fucking long it's gonna take them to get the right main stat with the right set? It will be so fucking difficult, because I'm assuming casuals, you guys don't farm overworld, right? You guys play this game for 10-20 minutes and you move on. So the only reliable way for you to get your 3 costs are from tested fields. But at the same time, if you are a casual, are you really gonna be spending stamina on tested fields when raising your unit levels, your unit traces, and your weapon levels, they provide you far bigger impact than trying to hunt for that main stat and substat? This is not about mathematically, theoretically, how much more damage. This is literally about stamina usage. Are you really gonna dump like thousands of stamina hunting for the right main stat and right substat? Or you can just get guaranteed progression, get your units to level 70, level 70 weapon, level 6 traces, and then you move on from there, while running a 4-4-1-1. So that is the key difference. It is not really about which set does more damage, but it's just about, can you even get that set? And if you can get a set, what did it take? And what did it cost for a casual player? So that's it, right?
But
at
why?
what cost?
That is because
At what
crit
cost?
is extremely expensive and extremely inefficient, and it gives very, very little damage. Let's look at why. Assuming your character don't have any stat right now, equipping it with a 30% damage boost just boosts your damage by 30%. That kind of makes sense. So if you're doing 100 damage per hit, giving it a 30% damage boost will bring it to 130. But what about critical strike? If you're running a crit damage main stat forecast, then you get 44% crit damage. But how much damage do you really get from that? Because it is not a 44% damage increase, I'll tell you that. Suppose you get a 44 crit damage increase. What does that really mean? Well, in Wuthering Waves, there's a base 150% critical damage modifier, but let's keep it simple and let's keep it 1-to-1 for now. So with a 44% crit damage increase, that means your crit is now going to do 144% damage of the base damage. So instead of doing 100 damage, when you do crit, you do 144 damage. But here's the problem. You don't crit every single time. You might crit half the time if you have 50% crit rate. You might crit 1/3 of the time if you have 30% crit rate. It depends on the critical rate modifier as well. That means you have to average out your true damage increase. So let's say you have a 50% crit rate.
Wait, before you continue, Chad, I just want to say, he's talking about a theoretical situation where there's no other modifiers to affect your final damage output. 30% damage buff is not equivalent to a 30% final damage buff, right? He's just removing all of the defense multipliers, res multipliers, whatever the fuck it is, like it's same as Honkai. He's just removing everything and assuming there's only a singular multiplier, this is gonna be the damage increase. So he's making it very, very simple, but that's not how it works. 30% damage or 30% attack does not equal to a 30% final damage increase. Same thing as how 44% crit damage is not equivalent to a 44% final damage increase. He just make it a lot simpler to break it down and show the difference, right? So hope you guys are understanding. This is not how damage formula works, but yeah.
And you crit half the time. So half the time you'll be doing 100 damage. half the time you'll be doing 144 damage. Your average damage is going to be 100 plus 144 divided by 2, which is 122. And you can see that this 122 is less than 130. So the 30% damage increase is just straight up better than your 44% critical damage increase. But here's the worst part. This is assuming you already have crit rate. This is assuming you already have 50% crit damage, which if you go check your character right now, I don't even know if you have it. The reality is that crit is expensive to build. And what we mean by expensive is that in order to see an actual benefit from it, you have to get a lot of it. That is because critical rate doesn't function without critical damage, and critical damage doesn't function without critical rate. And even when it do function, in that previous example, I saw it with 50% critical rate, the damage increase is still not as good as the raw 30% damage increase from your elemental damage modifier. But do you have 100% critical rate? Can you even get 100% critical rate in this game? And as your critical rate start dropping from 100 to like less and less and less and less, your critical damage is less and less and less and less effective. If you were to build a 4 cost crit rate and then a 4 cost crit damage, and you add the damage up together, it is not even as good as 1 free cost damage increase. Now that's not actually how it works. That's just a simple version. It depends on what other stat you have, which is the next part we're going to talk about. Despite all of this, why do you still want to build crit at the end?
Okay, before I continue, I believe he's saying this from a point where your crit rate and crit damage is already decent enough on your 4-3-3 setup. I think at the start of the video, he mentioned that your 4 costs, they're transferable to your next 4 costs, and your 1 cost, they're transferable to your next 1 cost, right? For 4-4-1 and 4-3-3. This can't really be used in a vacuum, because let's just say your unit is running 4-3-3. But if your even 4 and 1 costs are complete dog shit, so if you have like what, no crit value or very little crit value, inherent damage buff you get from a double 3 cost, assuming that even get a double 3 cost, is not gonna be always better, because you're assuming that this crit value is kind of there. Like not perfect, but like it's kind of there because your 4 cost and 1 cost is there. It's kind of hard to just straight up say 4-4 is like always gonna be worse than 4-3-3, because there's always this assumption that your 4 costs and 1 cost, they are both decent enough. I think the problem is just in the early game, which one is easier to obtain. And fundamentally, you can't just assume that a player will have the best 1 4 costs and 2 1 costs to make 4-3-3 decent enough. When it comes to ease of obtain, I think it's kind of hard to debate that 4-4-1 is always going to be easier, especially for a casual player, than a 4-3-3. When it comes to final damage, we can all agree 4-3-3 will definitely do more damage than 4-4-1. But yeah, let's continue.
About the idea of trying to maximize your damage as if you're trying to build a box as big as possible, and the volume is your damage. So in this case, you're trying to build a box, there's 3 variables you can control. Your width, your height, and your length. And each of these perfectly represent a different stat in the game, starting with attack percent, followed by damage percent, followed by crit. And each one of these variables increases the corresponding width, length, or height. And again, your goal is to make the box as big as possible. So how do you do it? The best way is to make them as even as possible. With simple mathematics, you can observe that if you were to build your box with a 5x5x5 dimension, then you'll have a volume of 125, because all you do is multiply the length, the width, and the height. But if you were to instead use 10 times 2 times 3, you notice that your volume is only 60. It's about half.
At this point, it's trying to show opportunity cost. Fundamentally, in order to get the best bang for buck, it is a little bit like Honkai style attack percentage versus damage percentage back then. You want to kind of even them both out, which is why there's this like diminishing return. If you have too much attack, it is better if you get more damage. So you can even them out, because it's a multiplier times another multiplier, right? So that is kind of the point he's trying to illustrate over here.
Even though in both cases, the amount of material you use adds up to exactly 15. So here you use 10 plus 2 plus 3 length of material, which is 15. And on the other hand, you also use 5 plus 5 plus 5 material, which is 15. So in both cases, your total length adds up to 15. But the one where you evenly distribute them is significantly better. But here's the problem. The material is not priced the same. There's a price attached to them. Imagine you're a construction company and you have to pay for the individual length to maximize a box. Well, in order to increase the length of your attack, you have to pay $1 for each 1 meter. In order to increase the length of your damage, you have to pay $1 for each 1 meter. But for crit, you have to pay $2, maybe even $3 per meter. And why? Again, that is because crit is only effective when you build both critical rate and critical damage stat. Therefore, they upcharge you because it costs double the amount of material.
You can quite literally get damage percentage in your substats via your whatever skill, attack, basic, liberation. Just like how you can also get crit in your substats. Okay, I just want to know like the ease of opting. I don't think we need to talk about like highest value of final damage in crit attack and damage. But like realistically speaking, as a casual player, which one is easier to obtain, especially right now at this point?
To maximize your damage, it's just ignore crit because they are overcharging you. You just focus on focus attack and focus
3 is in-thing, my man. You need the 5p set. The 5p set is really important.
on getting damage. That's the quickest way of getting damage until your damage and attack gets so big to a point where it is no longer efficient to increase these stats. In mathematics, there's something called diminishing return, which means the more of the same thing you build, the less efficient it is. Now, it's not exactly diminishing return, but the term itself just make it easier to understand. And what that means is that, let's suppose your attack is at 100, increasing this by another 50, bring it to 150, which is a 50% damage increase. However, bringing this another 50 up will bring it to 200, which is only a 25% increase from here. And you can see that even though in both cases you increase your length by 50, which means you pay $50, the amount of efficiency you actually get is not as high. You're getting half for the same price. And eventually it is so inefficient that building crit, even though they're overcharging you, is more worth it than to continue to build your attack or your damage. Because at the end, when you have so much money, when you have like perfect stat everywhere, when you have perfect roll on each of your pieces, critical is worth it, because then at that point your damage increase is a lot more significant from the crit, plus your damage increase from your other stat is not as significant. That's why you build crit at the very end, not the very beginning, because it is very expensive, but eventually it will be more expensive and less efficient to build other stat compared to building crit.
But towards the end, you just use 433 and get your crit from subsets though. Okay, so the point is, as casuals, we should try to build 433 early game, and then end game we still stick to 433 but build crit. But the problem is how easy it is for a casual to get the 3 costs.
Again, build crit at the end, not at the beginning. Do not build 44111. Stop building 44111. I know people are trying to do the 44111 setup, especially on either Havoc or Thunder characters, because you can get the 5p set bonus. But it's all completely wrong. It has nothing to do with the set bonus. It has nothing to do with that it's easier to get crit because you can get both. It is simply inefficient in both of these cases compared to just doing a single free cost echo with the right main stats without either set bonus or without any substats.
I would love to test this, except I don't even think I have a plus 25 3 cost yet, because none of them wrote good substats. I would love to test this though. I would love to test this.
Your 44111 setup can have the best substat in the game. For the most part, it is not as good as simply running a 43311 setup, as long as these 2 free costs have the right damage main stat.
Does it show a demonstration? It will be great. Okay, no, there's no demonstration.
Increase.
So it's theoretical math.
Like
it's theoretical math.
$1 damage increase if you build damage stat instead. For critical, not only you have to build both stats, so it's at least twice as expensive.
Okay, I think at this point it's kind of... Alright, I think we have made the point. So it's expensive to build crit compared to building damage, because you want both crit rate and damage. Crit rate and crit damage. Whereas for damage, the moment you get damage, is you increase the damage output. Chat, where's the Mayagi video? VTuber!
1-1 bad compared to 43311.
Let's see.
There's a good amount of misinformation out there, so I'll clear it up in a few minutes. As of patch 1.0,
Oh my gosh, she's so cute, guys.
44111 is exclusive to those who use Moonlit Clouds, Void Thunder, and Sun Sinking Eclipse.
You can get rid of Moonlit Clouds, because Moonlit Clouds would definitely 133.
In general, 43311 is preferable over 44111, but they could come very close.
Okay, great.
To understand this, let's go to the damage formula. Elemental damage bonus is additive with other damage bonus sources.
Yep.
Such
Your heavy attack, yep, and there it is. You can get damage bonus even when you're running 44111. Your heavy attack, your liberation, they're all counted as damage bonus. Running 4-4 is always going to be worse. It's not exactly right. Even if you run 4-4, you can get the damage bonus from other sources. It's not that like you can only gain damage bonus from your 3 cost main stat. That's just not true because you can quite literally get it from subsets. So yeah, absolutely.
As basic attack, skill, heavy, and liberation damage bonuses. As such, substat rolls, as well as several sequence modes, can dilute the relative gain you're getting from the elemental damage.
Oh my god,
these
she's so
combinations
cute.
occur.
She's so cute, guys.
I know there isn't a second Fusion Overlord Echo yet, but we'll use Encore as an example, only because I already have the calc set up for her.
Holy fucking shit.
The following calculations use Encore's first rotation and take into account all the buffs and factors in play, including her teammates' buffs, weapons and echo buffs, etc. For more information, please check out the calculator and my associated script as they're both public. Here's a table with the values of 44111 versus 43311, with Encore being at S0 or S6. In this example, no substats are in play. The difference in power between the sets is at most 10%, though this decreases to just a 7% gap when Encore is at S6.
Okay.
But let's be real, nobody has absolutely zero substats.
Yep.
So let's look at a version with full substats.
Before we look at the version, I just want you guys to notice at 44111 for Encore, this is without the 5-piece, okay? This is without the 5-piece. Encore is only 10% worse than 433. 10% worse with no 5-piece bonus. So keep that in mind.
In this version, I added 5 times of each substat out of crit, crit damage, attack, and basic attack.
Okay.
Fairly idealistic, I know, but at least I used a mid-roll for all of them. Anyway, as you can see here, the gap closes further between the two sets, with only a 3.5% difference at Encore S0 and just a 1% difference at S6.
Alright, so the fundamental difference is as a casual player, are you willing to gamble your stamina or gamble your time for a 4% increment in damage for 43311, or do it with 441, where you can quite literally get the 4 costs, the right main stat, for completely free? Yeah, that's great. I think we can legit all agree 433 definitely does more damage, right? More damage is always going to be good. You get a crit rate from your substats. You can even get it from food, all kind of stuff. But will you do it as a casual?
Now that we've talked about how the numbers look like with 0 and max substats, you can clearly see the difference between the two sets is not the biggest. Only 10% at max, and only getting smaller as you get more developed teams and substats. I have no clue where some people are coming up with the narrative that the gap widens at endgame and 44111 is an early game theme and etc. But hey, that's BL's crafting for you. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.
Okay, first of all, she's so fucking cute. Insane. Second of all, I'm just waiting for someone to legit data show actual in-game difference between 441 and 433. All these paper math, drawing the cube, statistical distribution, opportunity cost, diminishing returns, TLDR, we just run a singular test of 441 versus 433 and we can just come to an end of it, right? The set that does more damage is 43311. Which set costs more stamina? Also 43311. Is it worth using 441? Even though it deals roughly, I think, thank you so much for Maygi for the math, roughly 4% less damage. That is gonna be up to the players to decide. For the first time in the reaction video, I actually can't really say which take is more accurate than the previous take. Alright, so with that comes to the end of today's content. If you want to engage in the video discussion, head on to the Discord. All the best for your yinlin pools. All the best for your yinlin weapon pools. All the best for your relic rolls. All the best for your main stat, substat, main set hunting. And I'll see you guys next time.